Hello, I'm Jennifer Goodman with Good Life Realty, and I'm here today with Chen and Daniel Lowe of BercyChen. Guys, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks for having us.
All right, so let's get started. We'll start with you, Calvin. Tell us, where were you born and when did you come to Austin?
Well, I was born in Taipei, Taiwan, and I grew up in Australia. I moved there when I was 13, and then came to UT to study architecture, and just ended up staying here since.
Never left.
Never left.
All right. Daniel.
So I'm originally from Minnesota and did my undergrad education there. And then got a little restless and went to New York, where I spent probably 4 years, and then ultimately moved to Austin to do grad school, and I've been here ever since.
That is the theme of Austin. It really grabs people. Like, they come and they don't leave.
No, I think so. I mean, Calvin actually described it better before as saying Austin's like a comfortable pair of jeans. You just don't take them off after a while, and it just sort of becomes harder to envision yourself leaving or injecting yourself back into some other place. So yeah, it's been great.
So let's talk about what you love about Austin. What keeps you here?
I like the people here. People are friendly, and for us in architecture, it's the topography is, it's very, the site is very interesting. So I think we're really privileged. We work on a lot of lake houses or houses in the hills, or compared to my friends in Dallas or Houston, where there are not as many exciting lots that we get to work on. And I think people are a little bit more innovative and edgier and creative thinking. There's more interest in sustainability, and overall these are all like ingredients that makes a more interesting project.
Yeah, for sure. Daniel, what keeps you here?
I think for me it's probably what I also had the most difficult time adjusting to, and that is just the outdoors, with everyone being outdoors. I mean, having moved here from New York, like, you never really have to go outside, or I mean, if you do, it's to the subway or whatever. But here, it's like everyone is just always outside, always doing something, and I think you see that a little bit with the architecture too. We're sort of afforded this beautiful environment that is wonderful 11 months out of the year, and I think it's more of just the climate, it's the fact that people just really love to be outside.
Let's talk about trends and innovation and maybe some business things. What are you seeing now in the world of home construction? Any trends that you can think of?
I think there's a growing interest in green building, the new Tesla battery and improvements in PV panels, rainwater collection systems, and even like geothermal wells. I think that's something that we have a lot of clients that inquire about, and that we're constantly trying to incorporate. And we designed a house, the Edgeland house, a couple years ago, and the house has green roof. It's a very modest house, but it's on a hill in front of Lake Austin, that I think created a lot of resonance. People will get a lot of inquiries, and so I think, and I think Austin has a reputation as the green building program Austin's always been one of the pioneers in the country, and so I think these are trends that we continue to see, and then with technology, and I think. So I think there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of potential in that.
Yeah.
I think maybe some of the trends, if you will, that we're maybe excited about is just the general kind of one level automation. Seeing this a little bit about how on your phone you can pull up and you can turn lights on and you can adjust temperatures and you can do all this remotely. But I think also automation in the sense of perhaps building, and we probably haven't gone there yet in some regards, but about the computers or robots that are laying bricks, and so how you can kind of start to just just how it's changing the building industry, right? And changing the building and the design, and I think those are things like in our office that, we've got a board of, here's things that are happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
How can we start to be a part of that and still be on the cutting edge of a lot of this stuff?
Well, where are you seeing some of those things? Like, who's using that technology?
Well, I think right now I mean the automation as far as the temperature controls and that we're seeing that pretty frequently in a lot of our houses. A lot of the stuff, like, say, for example, I read something recently about 3D printing, about how we'll start printing our houses instead of, conventionally doing that. And to the best of my knowledge, a lot of this stuff is at the experimental level, where it's, at the universities that are doing it, or, perhaps a funded thing, and it hasn't hit the mainstream yet. And I think for us, that's the exciting part. Like, we want the clients that are willing to, that want that as well and are willing to take a risk and do that.
Yeah, and that's something we already see in our own office. We have a 3D printer, so that so our models the designs are printed by this machine, and then we use virtual reality. We render stereoscopic views, so we have a machine, so clients can kind of look at the experience virtually the environment. It's a huge, very powerful tool that we use. So I think we can see in the future, maybe slowly, little by little, they'll maybe go into a full scale realization and becoming commercially viable. Mm-hmm. I think we live in very exciting times. I think when we were in school, we caught the tail end. We still like drafted by hand, But I think like with the new students, nowadays it's like a brand new world. I mean, with all the digital tools, Revit and 3D printing.
I think the pace of the stuff that's changing is really exciting now. I mean, we had hand drafting for millennia, right? And all of a sudden now it's it's digital, it's 3D printing, it's virtual reality. It's like almost like every year there's something that comes out that completely revolutionizes the industry, I think. So that's from a studio perspective, I think a lot of stuff. But we'd love to do a 3D printed house when we're able to, I think.
Yeah, and that's the great thing about Austin. I think we've been very fortunate. We've had a lot of very entrepreneurial and people would think outside the box type clients. And we're working on one house in Sunset Valley right now. The client, he went to the MIT Media Lab, and he had an industrial design background. And he started a company. He designed this device and launched his company on Kickstarter. Mm-hmm. And it was a home automation device that kind of tells you the device will monitor the house, and if the house is flooded or there were some issues, it'll contact you. And so it's the sensor. And he's starting like a whole line of different products. And he was thinking about the house in a very experimental way. And so there are people like that I think when we work with them in terms of design, they also tend to be open-minded and so I think we're very, very blessed.
I mean, clients like Calvin described, I mean, they're bringing so much more to the table that we would never bring, or that's beyond our sort of realm of what we're seeing. But I mean, there's, custom design light switches, and sort of this level of detail of getting in there of stuff that really makes the project rich. And like Calvin said, we're fortunate to be in a part of the country where there's an abundance of people like that are bringing a lot to every project. So.
And I think it's a combination of things, the technology, and also like the sophistication of the client. With this particular house I mentioned, one of our inspiration was with a Rene Magritte painting of this lady riding a horse into the forest, and because they have 2 acres, it's very wooded. And then we're noticing that people wanted to be kind of out there, have a couple acres to feel like they're in the country. But then a lot of people, once they get out there, they clear the site and they cut all the trees, and it's next thing it looks just like the other suburbs. And then so we tried really hard. We wanted to design a house where the house kind of disappeared into the woods, so you preserve that kind of wooded quality, So
Wow.
that's why we showed him the Rene Magritte painting, and it plays with it's a surrealist painting. It plays with your depth perception. So and then he loved it, and then and we were able to maintain that design integrity, and then couple with these interests in technology. And I think that's what makes Austin exciting as a kind of architecture destination. There are a lot of and with UT there are a lot of interesting architects and interesting clients. It's just kind of this mix.
So Calvin, what trends are you seeing in layout design?
I think we work with a lot of end users, a lot of clients that are very specific about what they like, and I think everyone's a little different. Mm-hmm. I think it's we work on a lot of unique custom homes, so it's hard for me to say any sort of like particular trend. But I think if I have to say, it's probably a trend towards openness, open plan, and kind of breaking down the walls and big open spaces. And Austin's not a very industrial city. It's a pretty young city, so there's not a lot of like New York or cities on the East Coast has like these loft or industrial buildings. So I think natural light on the weather is great here. So sort of big light filled airy space. I think it seems like that's something that people are more and more gravitating towards.
I think with the concept of just kind of open spaces, I mean, that's something that's not an immediate new trend, but probably something that's been evolving for a while. And I think in regards to that specifically, probably with the kitchen, I mean, inevitably this is where the heart of every party is gathering there. And I think finally people are starting to kind of really open up the kitchen and make that integrated with the dining or the living or some other space where it's very open and you can get 20 people standing around there and hanging out. So
yeah, so that's actually a really good point, because it's a good party when everyone's in the kitchen.
Probably,
right?
Yeah.
Right, we've gone from the days of playing quarters to we've moved up a little bit. But how has that actually affected the layout of the kitchen? Have you noticed that that's changed at all?
I mean, I think what we're doing is probably more center islands than we would have done maybe 10 years ago or something like that, where people can kind of gather around that central space.
Yeah. Anything that you've noticed, appliances, any other changes or innovations that you're seeing coming to the table?
I think the devices are becoming more connected, so I think they're smarter, like the appliance, everything, your refrigerator, your oven, you look at recipes, and I mean there's a lot of advances that we're starting to see, and but then also as the electronics, when they become more complicated, there are other issues. It's how do you fix that? It's like I have an old Land Rover. It's just it's over-engineered at some point. And then you're always fixing this oxygen sensor, like when the device, there's actually nothing wrong with the car. So I don't know. It'd be interesting to see this kind of I feel like it's like this pendulum that swings.
I think maybe related to that too, with regards to modern architecture, is this specifically kind of making clutter go away to the best that you can, and sort of an economy of lines of making that. And so maybe that's putting refrigerators and all that stuff behind millwork. It's an attention to the poles, the drawer handles, of how can we make those go away, or
So it's the push.
Yeah, the touch latch system is great. It's kind of the built-in millwork, that the refrigerator hides behind, that you can't see all of that stuff. And so I think just a general sense of cleaning up the lines and being very conscious about everything that is in the space.
Are you seeing any innovative materials being used?
I think so, all the time. A lot of, like, for example, like insulations. So I think going back to what we were talking about with environmental thing, with regards to kind of at the core of how we're building, people are more conscious of you know, energy usage. So for example, like CMU blocks that, you know, a few years ago were probably simple concrete blocks are now probably at the core have, you know, serving another purpose other than simply aesthetic or simply holding it up. So this kind of duality of materials that can maybe do multiple things, I think is probably at the cutting edge, along with, you know, perhaps recycled materials that are being, in some instance, literally woven into new products. I think is interesting of where we're at now in the profession.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think just following that, you see, you know, the concrete blocks. You have like Hable blocks. You have aerated, you know, air entrained concrete. That are lightweight concrete blocks. There are a lot more options now, and I think one thing we like to do is introduce the idea of modularity into, because we work on a lot of commercial buildings, so we try to make the building more efficient that way, and you know, when you have, you know, something like 20-30% of the material that gets shipped to a job site ended up, you know, on that pile of waste. So it's not a very efficient way to build, especially with a lot of the traditional, you know, design. So I think that's one of the advantages of modern architecture is that you know, we know here in the U.S. you have a 4x8, you know, like plywood panels. There's this module,
right?
And then so, you know, we build houses with like light gauge steel, thermal steel panels with styrofoam pre-chased panels. They're super lightweight. You know, one worker can lift it up. One time we designed a house, and the frame, the infill panels, the framing was done in 3 days. So you saving on labors, and there's less waste. I mean, there might be a slight premium on the material cost, but then there are a lot of benefits, and I think we're only starting to. I think we're only at the beginning of you know, exploring these new ideas and technologies.
That's exciting that you're using that and you're able to bring it forward.
Yes, yeah, there are a lot of, you know, there are SIP, structure insulated panels. You can, you know, they're prefabricated. They ship them. They show up on site. Everything is cut to size, and it's like an erector set. You put it together. There are a lot of options out there. You know. At
some level, like our office is a little bit of a laboratory in the sense that we're rolling up our sleeves at some level and trying these ourselves. We've done a little bit with fiber optic in concrete blocks, you know, where you can have a massive, theoretically 8-foot thick wall that is bringing in light from the outside, you know,
wow,
and illuminating the space. We haven't made one that thick yet, but we're still, you know, playing around with it a little bit.
He made a prototype.
Yeah, did that a while ago. There's also, you know, kind of wires that normally when wire is heated it expands, but you know, there's, you know, interesting wire that when it's heated it contracts, which I think has really interesting possibilities for potentially, you know, sun shading or areas like that. So there's infinite number of things that are on the cutting edge that we want to play with and see how can we incorporate these someday into a future project. So
yeah, we have these samples of aerogel. It's a very high tech insulation material that's made by NASA that we purchased, and we're just playing around with it and investigating. So there. I think that's one thing that our office we do a lot, which is really kind of pushing the envelope, and we do design competitions as well, and those serve as sort of like our R&D projects almost, and then we try to learn and investigate, and sometimes some of the materials may not even be commercially available yet, but I think the idea is we like to create an awareness in the office, and then we're always kind of looking for opportunities to apply and those new technology.
Wow, I would just want to come live at your office and watch you guys do all these experiments. This is so cool. That's really neat that you guys, I mean, you know, we just got this, you know, silly putty from NASA, no big thing. That's what we do. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I can't wait to see what you develop from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Calvin, would you say you have a signature style?
Yes and no. I think I think sometimes when people go to our website, they're a little confused because we have. I think our styles are there are a variety of styles. So we have very modern homes, but then also there are houses that are. We also take a lot of inspiration from the vernacular. So. And I would say the reason why there are so many different sort of stylistic directions, it really comes from our client. I would say our clients and the site are probably the two biggest drivers. And then I think we come in there and then we work with those conditions and those givens. And then we, and again, sort of going back, probably 80% of our work is in Austin. And then so this interest in nature, responding. We're very lucky that we often get to work with sites with, on the water or with, on a 1,600-acre nature preserve, that we get to play with and engage. And so I would say, kind of, I think the organic architecture, that's been around for a long time. And but I think that's something that we're very interested in continuing to explore.
So I guess maybe more than a stylistic signature style is maybe more of an ethos of kind of every project has some external influence, whether that be the vernacular architecture, whether that be an artist painting or like responding to the environment. I think orientation. So I think there's definitely common threads that are in all of our projects. They might not look, stylistically, similar, and probably in some respects that's a good thing. But there is definitely threads that are woven through all of our projects.
Yeah, I think there's a British industrial designer / architect. His name is Thomas Heatherwick. There was just a show of his work at the Nasher in Dallas, and so he, with every project that they design, they're always trying to answer this one question. So, and I think in a way, I see some parallels between our work as well. And we try to take something very mundane and very bureaucratic and then solve it in a poetic way. Like for instance, how do you design a house that's in a floodplain and still, not make it have these ugly, support structures, and how can you engage the site and deal with the real world conditions. So I think that's something that we really strive for with every project.
Yeah, and clearly based on what I've seen, you managed to hit on so many different angles. It really is incredible.
And yeah, and I think that again that speaks to the sophistication of the clientele here. I think that's just, it would not be possible without a counterpart that because oftentimes the way we work is we always give the clients at least 3 options to begin. Usually something that's maybe a little bit more conservative that works, that's solid, but then not pushing the envelope, and then something that's a little bit out there, and then we sort of let the client decide what direction. And it's very interesting to see where people yes, and then how they're because I think when you design houses, it's kind of like doing a portrait for somebody. I think all their values or their preferences, their travels or their philosophies, it's all expressed in what they value. So it's a very interesting process for us.
So we're living in a city that's known for innovation. You're known for innovation. What's not hot these days?
I think maybe just potentially some like technology, like Kelvin was describing a little bit earlier. Like sometimes things are just over-engineered, over-complicated, and I think that anything that is there, needs to be tested at some level, and but I don't know. I can't think of anything specific off the top of my head that would fall into that.
It's I think in architecture academically it's an interesting time because we went through modernism and postmodernism, and then and it almost feels like we're living in a time where sort of anything goes, and people just pursue whatever they're interested in doing. A Tuscan villa, they're interested in You know, if you're Larry Ellison, you want to replicate a 17th century Japanese, you know, garden, you go and do that, and nothing's really kind of off limit, you know, and so I think Austin is such a liberating place. It's very, you know, I mean, it's kind of quirky. You've got the Cathedral of Junk in South. You've got all these kind of, you know, buildings that add to the character. You know, kind of the whole kind of idea of keeping Austin weird. You know?
Right.
I did this. There's a funny story. One day we have a construction site in the east side, and somebody did a graffiti on our sign, and they drew this little house, like a little child would draw, like a pitched roof, and it says, "Please build a normal house." and I thought, you know, and then with a smiley face, which was I don't know. I thought it was interesting. I thought it was funny, and you know, you also see like downtown Austin, part of it starting to look kind of like Dallas, like the W, and you know. And so I think it's interesting to see how Austin grow. You know, if we'll see more, if we can, you know, I feel like a lot of at the residential level, there's still a lot of this funky, creative, you know, energies. But then I think you look at some of the larger scale buildings, you know, there are also a lot of generic, a lot of big, you know, glass 40-story boxes that are just coming up. You know, it's making Austin look just like any other city. Like it could be like Toronto, it could be, you know.
So while that's maybe something that we wouldn't do, it's also a lot of people are doing it. So in a way it is a trend. You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but it is.
We have to rail against that. We can't have the sameness here.
It's not in Austin, it seems like, right? If the mantra really is keep it weird, then that would be sort of anti-normality. Yeah.
Absolutely.